A lot of you aren't realizing how your reactions are destroying your relationship, how you're being a big contributing factor to the ongoing arguments and things that you're dealing with your partner, right? And so I'm going to tell you right now why your reactions are actually doing that. And simply put, it's just for that fact. You're reacting instead of responding. Some people may say, what do you mean? They're pretty much the same thing. And you'd be hugely wrong to say that or think that, right? See, reaction, right, is a byproduct of primal instinct, primal wiring, meaning your fight, flight, or freeze response, right? That your body's already queued up on. The information that's already dialed in there just comes out reactively, right? Regurgitated. It's regurgitative. It just flies out of you because it's already pre-programmed based off of the work you've done on yourself for when this moment comes along or this heightened situation. See, it's easy to be calm and, think through things, comfortably and intellectually and efficiently and all that whenever your emotions aren't stirred up. But the moment someone trips your emotional triggers, right, your wiring inside of you, that's when whatever's already been pre-programmed inside of you into your nervous system comes out without you even having to think. You're just on go. It's like instant chemical reaction versus when you respond to your partner or to a situation. And notice this, by the way, I want to throw this in there. Notice we're talking about reacting, right? And then responding, and not like, hey, what you went to your partner to go say, because it's rarely that gets us into the hot water, right? Or that keeps the flame burning or offends our partner or whatever the case is. It is whenever you've heard something or experienced something from your partner that really rubbed you the wrong way, you really didn't like it, and your first thing was to react to what they said. And look, that's actually the piece that most people go with whenever they justify toxic behavior or unhealthy patterns, right? Or habits. They'll say, well, I did it because you did, right? This or whatever. Or I said that because you did that. Or that wouldn't have happened if you didn't do X, Y, Z. And they push off their accountability of their actions on their partner for them being the stimulus to their actions, right? But if that doesn't set it clear, that's as obvious as it gets that we are way more reactionary as humans, right? The animal part of us that connects us to every other creature here on this planet, than we are responsive. Because if you choose to respond, because that is a choice, that's conscious awareness of the situation, and you're processing how you should go about doing this in the most productive way versus just reacting at an impulse level that most likely is going to get you poor results more often than not, because you're leaning into your primal animalistic wiring and brain versus your higher, more elevated brain, which requires conscious effort to respond. Now, the $1,000,000 question is, why do people struggle so much with responding over reacting, right? I know we've all been there. I've definitely been there, where you said that thing back to your partner, no matter how justified you felt you were in the moment. But after you said it, or after you went and did the thing or whatever, you started second guessing yourself. You started kicking yourself for what you did or what you said. You're like, man, I know maybe they had it coming, but I shouldn't have said that. Or, man, I really don't like that I did that, right? We all been there because we're all human. We're all flawed, right? And so the question becomes, why do we get caught up in that moment where you react in this way that doesn't serve the relationship, doesn't serve you who you want to be, and doesn't serve the overall results that you want to get, right? Well, we do it so often. The more you lack emotional intelligence, this is the biggest piece as to why people struggle to take the quote unquote high road more often than not, or the more productive option that's going to get you a better result and check your ego. See, usually we lean into the reactionary space and our ego is driving that, and we're not even thinking, we're just going off of that emotion, versus whenever you have enough emotional intelligence built up, then it puts you in a better position to respond versus reacting. Because when you don't have the emotional intelligence, which means, make sure we're on the same page, emotional intelligence is the ability to understand, process and regulate your emotions, meaning you can actually, tap into what's going on, understand what you're feeling, and make some sense of it, right? And actually know what you need to do mentally to keep yourself in a more calm state, in a more productive space, to not just fly off, right? Now, the biggest reason why a lot of people drop the ball in this area when it comes to the moments where it matters most, when you're talking to that partner, or even in any situation where it gets to be really high intense stakes, right? To where the emotions are flying high, is because so many people, when they're not in one of those, really toxic moments, or one of those really conflicting engagements or arguments or whatever, do not understand or know what their triggers are. They don't know what the chords that get struck are, or what strikes those chords that puts them into that primal space. So part of building your emotional intelligence comes full circle to you spending time in learning what are the things that set you off, and learning why they set you off. That's the processing, right? It's the understanding, is the knowing what the triggers are, understanding what gets you going. And then the processing is, okay, why this gets me going, right? What is it about this that gets me going? And then the regulation is deciding what you need to start thinking or do mentally in order to nurse and nurture that seated reason as to why you get so triggered, right? What does it need from you, the antidote, if you will, so you can have more control over those emotions? But that's just the first piece. So after we get past the emotional intelligence part, then now we have to roll into the emotional maturity piece. See, after you've gotten to understanding what your triggers are, or what gets you going like that, processing it, and then deciding, what you need to do to regulate, then comes the action, the external part. See, the emotional intelligence, that's more of the internal component. But the emotional maturity is now what you do with that information. So it's the action step you take. It's the way you go about, honoring the feelings you have, right? Not just disrespecting them and saying, oh, they don't matter, let me just stop thinking that way or feeling this way. But acknowledging, no, I do feel this way, and this is my reason I feel it. But you choose the more productive route of going about expressing that emotion without it being something detrimental to the overall goal, which is peace and unity, and get back on the same page. And so your ability to build up the emotional maturity best is going to be how well you work on outside of the elevated moment, right? See, it's just like playing in a sport or something, right? You don't try to start training for the championship when you're in the championship. You train all season for that, or you train all off season for the season. You don't try to get in shape whenever the first game of the actual season starts, right? So the piece with the emotional maturity comes in when you start learning to build the resilience and the discipline to not just react first, right? To where your first thing is to take a pause. Your first action is to pause, think, and to decide what the most appropriate and productive action would be, right? That's how you start working on your emotional maturity, right? So where you've already processed things, you understand, what you need to do mentally to regulate. Then you make the decision to, all right, think first and decide on what would get the best result here. What would lead with love, but also still land my message or the thing I hope my partner understands here? What would bridge the gap? What would still honor me getting to express that I feel away right now, and I'm not happy about what's going on, and I'm upset about what they said, what they did, or whatever, without me compromising who I want to be by my own principle and moral compass. So a great example of doing this is whenever you're in that moment, right? And whatever the thing is happens, and you feel yourself getting triggered, you stop, go to your mental process you need to go to, right? All right, why is this triggering me? Okay, what I need to think? Hey, stay calm. Don't react too intensely. Then you move into your emotional maturity piece, right? And a great example is by saying to yourself first, take a deep breath. So the action would be stopping, literally taking a deep breath, maybe two if you need to, because it forces you to pull your focus to your breathing and regulation versus just being up in your head, right? You're taking an action that you can actually experience in the real world. Then you ask yourself the question, is this response going to help solve the issue or make it worse? And if your answer goes, it's going to make it worse, then you say, well, if it would make it worse, what could I do right now, here in this moment, immediately, that will actually help towards it being better, right? Whether that's, hey, saying to your partner, hey, look, I'm trying to work with you right now, but I'm struggling a little bit, right? Maybe it's just that empathy, or not empathy, that more vulnerability. Maybe it's just that, and you're just open up and let them know that you're really struggling, and that what they said is really difficult for you, but you're saying it in a calm voice. Just little pieces like that are amazing for being able to turn the tide and keeping yourself on the right track you want to be on, while still expressing yourself, to where you're taking action to honor the emotions you're feeling, but it's more productive actions instead of something that's going to tear down a relationship and add more fuel on the fire. So remember, start practicing learning your triggers first, pausing before speaking or acting, and then choosing the most serving response or action that will actually help you get the results you really want. Now, if you need help building this skill set, because this is really a skill that needs to be built, and it's a difficult one to build a lot of times, right? If you need help building it so you can be more of a contribution to the conflict in your relationship and not adding more fuel to the fire that winds up potentially ending your relationship, then email or DM me the word coaching and we'll get to work, as long as you're truly ready to put that work in. If you're not ready for one-on-one coaching and don't have the time or the space, then at least email or DM me the word revival to join my Relationship Revival Hub community, where you can learn the same things I teach my clients one-on-one at your own pace, on your own time. Either way, do something to get in the race. Let's get it.